Knock, knock, knock. I sighed. It had been a long Monday, and I was hoping that no new clients would seek out my services. Oh well, it's what I signed up for. Come in, I said, trying to conceal the annoyance in my tone. The door squealed loudly on its hinges. I winced at the sound. I really needed to have those lubricated. A disheveled man trudged into the room and sank into the chair opposite from me. His hair was a tangled rat's nest of greasy, brown locks. Dark purple bags hung low under his eyes. Sullen defeat was written across his visage. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Look, detective. Here, Baxter? Claxton. Close, though. And you are? Detective Claxton. Sorry, my name is Lewis. Well, it's nice to meet you. Lewis, I said, flashing him a grin and reaching over the desk to extend a hand. He tentatively accepted it. So, Detective Claxton, I really need your help. I pursed my lips. I really need your help. I'd heard those 5 desperate words more times than I could count. I wondered what it would be this time. Cheating girlfriend was my leading guess. Okay, what's the issue? A man shuffled in his seat, suddenly taking a particular interest in his shoes. Nothing could have prepared me for what he would say next. I think my wife is a demon. I stared at him blankly, mouth agape. Was this some sort of joke? Did this guy escape from the loony bin? Or something? He seemed genuine, but I couldn't be sure. Did I hear that correctly? You said you think your wife is a demon. Yeah, that's right. Look, I know this sounds absolutely unhinged, and you don't have to believe me, but she's been getting more, how do I put this? Sinister. I get this really terrifying feeling whenever I'm around her. She's stopped going to church, and she's been staying out all night long. All she tells me is that she's going to see a friend. I've been too scared to question it. That might not sound too bad, but Jessie has always been very religious. She used to be the pinnacle of righteousness. I need to know what's going on. I'm at the end of my rope here, Lewis said, locking eyes with me. A pang of guilt struck my chest like a lightning bolt. He looked so broken. I could tell that Lewis really cared about his wife, and that the whole ordeal had taken a huge toll on him. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. I'm sorry, but I can't take your case. My last run-in with the occult nearly killed me. I can't put myself through something like that again, but I just want you to follow her. You won't need to have any kind of interaction at all, unseen and unheard. I sighed. He wasn't taking this how I'd hoped. Lewis, I can't help you. It's nothing personal, but I have a strict no demon policy. It's just not something I can accommodate for. He nodded, dejectedly standing and pushing the chair back in place. He took 2 steps toward the door, then paused. $15,000. My eyes grew wide as saucers. That was an eye-popping amount of money. I began to stroke my goatee. I could do a lot with that amount of cash. 15 grand for one job. How hard could it be? You've got a deal. I agreed to start surveilling his wife that evening. I wish I'd never accepted that job. That day, just as the sun was beginning to set, I parked down the street a ways from Lewis's house. He lived in a quaint suburban neighborhood. I couldn't discern anything out of the ordinary. Yet, I took a deep breath before stepping out of my car. I stuffed my hands in my pockets and began shuffling toward the couple's driveway. I kept my head low, pulling the bill of my baseball cap down lower over my face, as inconspicuously I could. I knelt down beside the blue Kia Soul parked in the driveway and stuck a tracker inside the wheel well of the rear passenger side tire. With the less than legal part out of the way, I hurriedly scuttled back to my vehicle. Now for the fun part, waiting. I sat in my car playing solitaire for about 35 minutes before a tall, blonde woman emerged from the house, making a beeline for her vehicle. Jessie looked good for her age. Like, really good. If I hadn't done my research, I would have thought she was Lewis's daughter. The woman was pushing 40, but she could have passed for a college student. I wiped the drool from my chin and tapped on the tracking app installed on my phone before discreetly tailing her. It didn't take long until we arrived at our destination. I watched as Jessie's car rolled to a stop in front of an upscale house. It was luxurious. The lush, extensive lawn was perfectly trimmed, and the pillars extending from the porch exuded an air of grandeur that I couldn't fathom being able to afford. Jessie sauntered up to the front door and produced a key. She let herself in. I scratched my head. That was strange. I'd found nothing to suggest that the couple owned a second property, and certainly not one that nice. Well, back to solitaire. I didn't even have a chance to open the game before a lifted black Toyota screeched to a halt in the driveway. Even at my distance, I could hear Luke Combs blaring loudly over the speakers. A grimy man with a grungy white t-shirt and blue jeans hopped down from the driver's seat. He looked like he hadn't showered in weeks. I could practically smell the body odor and cigarette smoke wafting off of him. Gross. Ugh, don't tell me she's cheating with that guy. The man approached the home with a confidence that he had no business possessing. He knocked on the door and stepped back. A few seconds passed with no response. He raised his fist to knock again, but the door swung open before he had a chance. The greaseball stepped inside, and the door shut quietly behind him. I decided to wait to fill Lewis in until I'd finished my investigation for the night. No need to lead him to the wrong conclusion if I didn't have all the information first. I thought about pulling out my phone and relaxing until I noticed any more activity from the house. No, I couldn't afford to be lazy, not with 15 big ones on the line. It wasn't hard to find dirt on the owner of that lavish home. Isabel Geralds was 30 years old with no children, a master's degree in biology, and a dropped murder charge. Isabel's husband, a 63-year-old banker named Henry, had died under mysterious circumstances in the couple's home. All the evidence pointed to Isabel. It should have been an open and shut case, but somehow Izzy got off scot-free. Interesting. Why was Lewis's wife, a seemingly upstanding member of the community, hanging out with a suspected murderer? The whole thing felt off, as I would soon come to find out it was. I scrambled to pull up the tracking app again. 2 figures emerged from the home. It was dark, so I couldn't make out their faces, but I could tell that they were women. That was odd. Where was Captain Sleazy? I watched as one of the women hopped into the driver's seat of the truck. I caught a brief glimpse of Jessie as she slid into the front seat of her Kia. She had a wide, satisfied grin plastered across her lips. I shuddered. I was beginning to see what Lewis meant when he said that she gave off a creepy vibe. The woman driving the truck, who I assumed was Isabel, peeled out of the driveway. Jessie waited for a couple minutes, then followed suit. I was beginning to get a sinking feeling that those two were up to something far worse than having an affair. I followed a few minutes behind them. We drove for what felt like an eternity. My heart thumped wildly with anticipation. Where were they going with this guy's truck? Around 45 minutes later, we arrived at a scrap yard on the outskirts of town. I didn't follow them inside the gate. I didn't need to. All the pieces had fallen into place. Lewis's wife was a murderer. I called him on the way home. I hoped it would be enough to satisfy him. Of course, it wasn't. Hey Lewis, it's Detective Claxton. Hey detective, did you find anything? Lewis's voice was timid and weak. I could tell that he was dreading my response. I wished I could lie to him and tell him that all his worry was for nothing, but I couldn't. Yeah, I did, actually. Are you sitting down? If not, I'd highly suggest it. Yeah, I'm sitting. Just let me have it already. The suspense is killing me. I sighed. Well, he asked for it. Lewis, I don't think your wife is a demon. I think she's a murderer. The line went silent. I could tell that my revelation had smacked him like a ton of bricks. I gave him time to process the information. So, how do you know? I watched your wife and her friend lure a man into a house. Then a few minutes later, they took his truck to a junkyard. Without him, if that's not proof that something's up, I don't know what is. Well, did you take any pictures? Crap, why hadn't I thought to do that? Some detective I am. I have my dash cam footage, but that's it. That's not enough. I need cold, hard evidence. I can't divorce her over hearsay. I pursed my lips. I was hoping he wouldn't say that. Understood. I'll follow her again tomorrow. Thank you, detective. Yep, you got it. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Was this really worth it? Photo proof meant I would have to get closer, much closer, and I really didn't want to do that. I decided to sleep on it. If things got too dicey, I wouldn't hesitate to drop that job. It wasn't worth getting killed over, or worse. That night, I had the most vivid dream of my entire life. I awoke in my bed. My bedside lamp was on. I wearily rubbed my eyes as they adjusted to my surroundings. I glanced up, then stifled a scream. There was a woman standing at the foot of my bed. She was beautiful, blonde hair cascaded down her back in waves. She wore a red dress that hugged her tightly in all the right places. Her smile was so warm and inviting. Those ocean blue eyes shimmered with a familiarity that I couldn't quite place. And then it hit me. This was Jessie. She lightly bit her bottom lip, sending my heart racing. She gradually began to crawl toward me. I didn't fight it. Jessie had me in a trance, and she knew it. Before long, she was on top of me. Jessie softly scooped my hands into hers. My mouth hung open like a moron as she guided my hands to her waist. I was paralyzed as she leaned in close to my ear. "Do you want me?" I could feel myself nodding, even though I hadn't intended to. It was like I was a puppet, and someone else was controlling the marionette. Jessie closed her eyes and went for the kill. I squeezed mine shut just before her lips grazed mine. I woke up in a cold sweat. What the hell was that? It felt so real. I wasn't an idiot, though. I began to get a sinking feeling that Lewis was right about his wife, and that terrified me. I couldn't get back to sleep after that, whether due to anxiety or some sort of lingering effects from my dream. I didn't know. I groggily slunk out of bed and brewed a pot of coffee. This isn't worth it. I should just give up on this. I haven't even met this person, and I'm already seeing her in my dreams. Nope, I'm calling it quits. But 15 grand is a lot of money. I determined that I had to finish this thing. Lewis deserved the truth, right? Of course he did, and it was my job to deliver it to him. I was on edge all day. If Jessie was what I thought she was, then could she find me through my dreams? I didn't find anything online to affirm my fears, but you can never be too sure, especially when 99% of people have never encountered that type of entity for themselves, and even less have lived to tell about it. Once dusk rolled around, I turned on the tracking app and headed to Lewis's place. A sense of dread had sunk into my stomach like a stone. I really didn't want to go through with this. I waited for Jessie to come out of the house. She did, right on cue. I again followed her to Isabel's house. No surprises there. I parked in the same spot as the day before. It wasn't long before a lime green Camaro pulled into Isabel's driveway. A man wearing a Metallica t-shirt stepped out of the vehicle. It wasn't sunny outside in the slightest, but he kept his shades on nonetheless. Those two really knew how to pick them. A man sashayed up to the door, and before long, he was pulled inside the home. I pursed my lips. Same routine, different day. I waited for around 30 minutes this time before Jessie returned to her car. Isabel took off in the Camaro, and Jessie followed suit. Now was my chance. I slipped a pair of black leather gloves on as I approached the house. I just needed to get in, uncover their ploy, and get out without being seen. Simple, right? I grabbed onto the door handle. There was no way they had. Click. The door opened with little resistance. Wow, that was easy. I stalked the hallways, searching for any sign of foul play. I glanced up to see a security camera pointing at the foyer. Not that it mattered. My ski mask would be sure to conceal my identity. I continued my search. I determined that I needed to find the bedroom. That was where I was the most likely to find my evidence. I turned around, opting to look upstairs. I crept silently up the steps, wincing at every creaky floorboard. They weren't loud, but at that moment, the noise sounded thunderous in the empty home. I reached the top landing and scanned the dark hallway before me. At the end of the hall, a door was slightly cracked open, spilling warm, yellow light into the unlit corridor. Bingo, that was what I needed. I tiptoed to the door, heart in my throat. This was it. I smiled as I thought about the massive payday I was in for. Just a few more minutes, and everything would be worth my while, or so I thought. The light from the room partially illuminated my face. As I stepped into view, I pushed lightly on the door. It squeaked softly on its hinges as it gradually revealed the room to me. Upon first glance, it was spotless. A pristine look at what a six-figure salary and solid business connections will earn you. The couple's king-sized bed was neatly made. Jewelry was strewn haphazardly around a gold box on the dresser. A photograph of Isabel and Henry sat on the nightstand. Their beaming faces sent a chill crawling down my spine. Something about Isabel's wide, jovial grin was just unnatural. I continued my search. I needed to be quick. I still don't know what possessed me to do it, but I walked up to the window. I pulled back the blinds and gasped. The window had a clear view of the backyard, and in it, 12 mounds of displaced dirt. They'd been burying the bodies. I snapped a picture through the window and turned to leave. Even if that was the only shred of proof that I had, it should still be enough for Lewis to confront his wife with at the very least. The smug smirk plastered on my face quickly faded. Suddenly, I was falling. My foot had caught on the rug, and I was sent tumbling to the ground. What I discovered down there still sends me shivers. I opened my eyes, rubbing my temple. As soon as I did, I stifled a scream. I found myself face to face with a corpse. Its whole body was shriveled, like it had been sucked dry of all of its bodily fluids. Its hair had fallen out, only wispy, sporadic strands remaining. Its skin was ashen gray, splotches of fresh blood spattered across its face. But what terrified me more than any of that, the withered husk was wearing a pair of jet black shades, and a Metallica graphic t-shirt clung loosely to its emaciated frame. I immediately bolted. Proof be damned, I didn't want anything to do with that place. I ran to my car as fast as my legs would carry me. I slammed it into drive and stomped on the gas. It wasn't until I reached my house that I stopped hyperventilating. I couldn't go through with it. I called Lewis and told him that I was done. I didn't care about the money. It wasn't worth it. Lewis was understandably upset, but eventually he relented. I packed my bags and bought a motel room for the night, just to be safe. I never should have gotten mixed up with the occult. I'm shivering as I'm typing this out. I don't think I have very long left. Whatever Jessie is, I think she's onto me, because I just got a text from a random number. Attached was a picture of a tracker and a caption that read, "Hello, detective. Are you missing something?